So hi everyone, my name's Nicky Lewis and I am your presenter for this evening. I'm also the manager of Peak Training, which is one of the business arms of New South Wales Family Daycare Association. It is a registered training organisation business arm. I'm also a trainer and assessor and an early childhood teacher, and just wanting to share a little that I've been advocating for the rights of children and educators in this sector for over 30 years and have been driven towards roles that have enabled me to do this either directly as a teacher in a service or through mentoring others. And this includes at a CEQA in the Regulatory Authority Support Team, as well as the Quality Support Program teams. Also as a teacher across 3 states for a large provider, and in my current role in the RTO, providing quality support, resources and qualification content to support all of you and the professional growth of students and educators in our sector as a whole. So I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing this evening with you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that I'm meeting from today, as well as the lands that all of you are meeting from, the varied lands that we are all meeting from. I'm meeting from Gadigal land, so I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples here tonight with us. If you know the land, and I know some of you already have popped it in the chat, if you know the land you're meeting with us tonight, I do invite you to share that with all of us in the chat. And again, as some of you have already done so thank you. Just a little reminder before we dig deep into what we're doing tonight. Again, welcome to our assessment and rating in family daycare PD in your pocket 29th session. Wow. The booklet that accompanies this session has already been sent out to all of you if you registered right up until late yesterday. So it went out. Please have a look in your emails. Some of it sometimes goes to junk. Please do look. If you don't have that, it will be available on the Facebook page. I'll provide the link on the Facebook page. It will also be available on the website shortly. So you will have that available on the website along with a recording and podcast of this session by the end of this week. You'll also be able to hop into the any past PD in your pocket sessions on the website, and feel free to join our closed Facebook page, PD in your pocket, if you haven't already, and keep the conversations going. This is a community of practice and we all have a commitment to support each other to grow professionally. So please join us there as well. All right. So let's begin with this emotive slide, and no, it's not because it's Halloween tonight that I've included this slide. It is in fact in response to something I've noticed through my work over the years supporting services when they're called for assessment and rating, or A&R as we know it. Often it does look like this slide, which is fear. The notice arrives, the nerves set in, and the panic begins. But what if I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way? I know most of you who haven't been through it, and for those of you who went through it a long time ago might not believe me. But those of you who have recently been through it will agree with me. And I know this because I've spoken to you. I've spoken to both parties, services and authorised officers. But how, I hear you asking? I did hear that, didn't I? Understanding the process, knowing what to expect, being prepared and seeing A&R through a different lens can sometimes help turn it from this scary thing to, dare I even say, a joyous one. I whispered that, but I'm going to shout it out louder later. Hopefully tonight we'll do just that. So let's take a look at what you shared during your registrations. First, you were asked a series of questions, and then we're going to hop into the details of this presentation. So firstly, though, you are most welcome to be an active participant in this webinar through both the chat, which I can see everyone actively involving themselves within, and the question box. So there are over 1,300 of you lovely people here tonight with me. So yay, that's exciting, party time. So the chat will probably scroll past pretty quickly. It is scrolling past quickly, too quickly for me to see and answer in time. So if you have a burning question, just pop it in the question box. If we have time at the end, I'll have a look, or my awesome colleagues could possibly answer as we go. Otherwise, we'll get back to you after this webinar. I can pop some answers in the Facebook page for you. So let's move away from this scary scene into some data for those of you who love a bit of data. We've got a lot to get through, so please forgive me if I race through these slides. Just when you registered for this session, we did ask you some poll questions to gain more of an understanding about how you feel about A&R, as well as your A&R knowledge and experience. And 54% of you feel a little nervous, and 21% feel very nervous when you hear the term assessment and rating. 16% of you are feeling a little excited, and 9% very excited when you hear the term assessment and rating. And I'm hoping if we asked you this again at the end of tonight, we would reverse the data with most, if not all of you, hopefully feeling excited about assessment and rating. Feeling comfortable talking about your practice is super important during A&R. So how wonderful that 64% of you are somewhat confident, and 27% of you feel very confident in articulating your practice. It's also great to see that only a small 9% of you are not confident at all. Again, hopefully tonight will shift you to be more confident. What was next? We asked you about whether or not you've been through assessment and rating, and most of you have been through it, and perhaps recently or a while ago. In fact, 59% of you. 37% of you have your first A&R experience to look forward to, and interestingly, 4% of you don't know if you have been through A&R or not. So tonight's information and strategies would ensure everyone's aware of when they're going through A&R and be equipped to know how to prepare for it. This question, the last question we asked you in registration, was that when it comes to how much you know about the assessment and rating process, a whopping 69% of you know some of it, 26% of you know all about it, and a small teeny 5% of you know nothing at all. This will definitely be a different story at the end of tonight's session. So let's dive into tonight's session, and this is what we'll be covering. This session is going to help you better familiarise yourself with the A&R process and discuss ways you can prepare for your next A&R visit. Knowing what to expect and how to prepare for A&R can often lead to feeling more comfortable with the process. So when you feel more comfortable with the process, you are more likely to look forward to the opportunity to share and celebrate what you and your service do well. So tonight in this session, we'll unpack the what, the why, the how and the who of A&R and family daycare with a national lens. What it is, include the process, why it's important, who assesses your service, and who is involved in being assessed. We'll also discover about what to expect before, during and after an A&R visit. We'll look at tips on how you might prepare for A&R, including a little fun. I'm going to invite you to walk in the Authorised Officer shoes a little late tonight, so close to the end. If you want to have a bit of fun, start thinking about kind of shoes you might slip into as you slip into character of your Authorised Officer. Is it going to be slippers, thongs, stilettos, barefoot, whatever takes your fancy? But start thinking about that now, because I'm going to ask you to pop that in the chat. It's also a great way to motivate and get buy-in from your educators, as well as a self-assessment strategy. And finally, we're going to hear from an Authorised Officer and service on their assessment and rating experience and approach. So are you ready? Let's dive in and look at the what, the how, the who of assessment and rating. Starting with, yes, you guessed it, the what. So what actually is assessment and rating, or A&R? A&R is part of the overall quality improvement process. It's the A&R process is when a service is assessed against the 7 quality areas of the National Quality Standard by an authorised officer, and then given an overall quality rating based on these results. Registered services, including family daycare, long daycare, preschool, kindergartens and outside school hours, are assessed and rated against the national quality standards to ensure you know, understand and follow or are compliant with the law and regulations. Encourage you to provide quality education and care through a cycle of self-assessment and continuous improvement. Improve knowledge and access of information for your families about the quality of your service so that they can make informed decisions about their child's care and education. So is it still sounding a little scary? Pop a yes or a no in the chat. Let's be active and engaging. I do understand, but here's where we shift our perspectives. Thank you to Julie and Heidi for saying yes, and sorta to Megan. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you being involved, and to Amanda and Larissa and Lema and everyone else that's also saying something. We're going to move to the next slide. So that's the what. And I do agree that for educators and leaders and those new to the sector, even those of you who are more experienced, knowing that someone's coming into your service, they're coming to examine your practice, they're coming to ask you questions, they're coming to seek to learn more about your service, to rate it, can be quite uncomfortable. But I'm hoping after tonight that you'll walk away feeling informed about, comfortable and even confident in, and perhaps even excited to welcome the process. I'd love everyone to react this way, as this lovely person in the slide is reacting. It's like, she's received her A&R notice and she is an educator and she's excited that she's been chosen for a visit from the AO or Authorised Officer. So you can, and you can also feel this way, and you will feel this way if you see A&R as an opportunity for you to showcase and celebrate what you do every day, the awesome stuff that you do every day to support, educate and care for children at your service. So let's start this session, as I said, looking through a positive lens before we step into the what, the why and the who of A&R. And every time I say lens, I feel like touching my glasses. Let's see the A&R process as an opportunity to share and showcase your awesome practice, to celebrate your strengths and achievements, to critically reflect on the quality of your programs and practices, to discover opportunities for improvements and to advocate for family daycare services in the early childhood sector, which is a huge one. I do invite you to do that. And of course, to grow professionally. Excited yet? Again, yes, no, maybe in the chat if you like. Keep that positive lens on and let's learn a little bit more. Thanks, Anita, for saying yes. All right, so let's put A&R in the big picture. Thanks, Tanzia and Sakura and Anita, also for engaging in the chat. The big picture, here it is, to understand the why, the how and the who assessment and rating in family daycare. This diagram shows us the components that make up the National Quality Framework. And the National Quality Framework, as you all know, was introduced in 2012. And here's the why. It was introduced to improve education and care by providing that national quality standard and approach to regulation, assessment and quality improvement across long day care, family daycare, preschool or kindergarten and outside school hours care services. The National Quality Framework aims to raise quality and drive continuous improvement and consistency in our sector through the overarching, you can see at the top of this image, the national law, which sets the minimum requirements for children's education and care in the sector across Australia, and the national regulations which describe in detail how the provisions of the law are applied. And I like to see the law and the regulations as an umbrella. It's the umbrella that holds or includes and links to the national quality standard you see there, the national approved learning frameworks, which incidentally, I know you already know have been updated. And I know you also know, or I know that you also have started looking into and becoming familiar with version 2.0 of the Early Years Learning Framework and My Time, Our Place, if you have school-aged children in your service. Know that you can still use either versions throughout 2023, but you will need to only use version 2.0 from the 1st of February next year, 2024. So that will be the new regs or regulations, that it is a must that you use version 2.0 then. So also under my umbrella is the assessment and quality rating process by the regulatory authority in each state and territory, a regulatory authority or RA in each state and territory, who is responsible for the approval, monitoring and quality assessment of your service, and a national body, a CEQA, which guides the implementation of the National Quality Framework and works with regulatory authorities. Big picture. Now, here's a little note that speaking of legislation, and it's really, really important that you are familiar with your requirements under the law and the regulations, no matter what your role is in your service, and that you do refer to these and your policies when you're unsure about something. I know, for example, these statements have come up based on questions that educators have asked, and knowing where to look and going to the source of truth, such as the regulations, will give you the correct answer rather than asking other educators. And we do this, don't we? We go onto our Facebook groups and we ask these questions, and everyone's so helpful in the sector and they want to provide answers, but sometimes those answers might misinform us. So going to the source of truth helps. And let's have a play. I'm going to ask you this question, both of these questions, the first one first, and I want you to pop your answer in the chat before I reveal the answer. So the first question, and it's true or false, the first question is, it's actually not a question, it's a statement, is each family daycare educator must develop their own quality improvement plan or QIP and display it at their premises. Is this true or false? Yes or no? And I'm getting mixed. I'm getting true and false coming through. I'm going to keep it going. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. It's false. So for those of you who gave me a false answer, high five to you, give yourself a cuddle, or a high five for yourself, or if there's someone sitting next to you, they can do that for you. It is actually false. The approved provider of your family daycare service is responsible for developing the QIP and must ensure there is one available at the principal office for your family daycare service or the coordination unit, according to Regulation 31. That doesn't mean that you can't have one in your own service if you are an educator. By all means, have one, have the service one, have your own that feeds into the service one, but it is not a regulatory requirement. Okay, are you ready for the next one? Here it is. A copy of the educational program must be available at each family daycare residence or venue. True or false? Mixed bag, but lots of trues coming through, I can see. Some false. And I'm going to give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to reveal it is in fact true. So again, high five to those of you who got that correct. Under Regulation 75, information about the contents and operation of the educational program must be displayed at the education and care service premises at a place that is accessible, so in the educator's home, that is accessible to parents and families. So this was a little exercise to show you that we might reach out to each other for answers, and we have well-meaning people providing answers, but are they correct answers? Go to the source of truth. All right, we did introduce ASEQA a little bit. Let's look at a little bit more about who ASEQA is and what they're responsible for. So the ASEQA is the national authority that oversees the National Quality Framework and works with governments and other stakeholders to achieve the objectives of the National Quality Framework. ASEQA helps by approving qualifications for people, training and testing and providing resources to authorised officers, awarding the excellent rating, undertaking second-tier reviews of quality ratings, hosting the National Quality Agenda IT system, or NQATES, as we like to say, publishing guides and other resources, and I'm going to refer to some of those tonight. And also in the booklet, there are some great links too, and publishing the national registers of approved providers and services, so including their national quality rating. ASEQA does not, here's something funky that I've created. Is it going to work? Whoop, here it goes. ASEQA does not, does not rate or assess services, only if a service has applied for the national quality rating, the excellent rating. They do not assess and rate your service. Who does? I'll show you in a minute. But just quickly, a little bit more about ASEQA. Do gift yourself some time to hop onto the ASEQA website to find resources to support you in your practice, to support your A&R journey. And there are blogs, there are information sheets, there are games, there are videos, and so on and so on. Hop in, have a look, and there's even family daycare specific resources for you, including resources about the recent changes to the regulations. 2 QR codes on your screen. One is to the website itself, and the other is within the website to your family daycare specific resources. So please do have a look at that. Again, in the booklet, that link is provided. Just a quick note for our New South Wales Family Daycare Services about the Quality Support Program, Dual Pathway Program. The New South Wales Department of Education and ASEQA are offering eligible services this awesome opportunity to participate in the Quality Support Program. It's been going for a few years now. I was involved in it when I was at ASEQA. It is awesome. If you are in New South Wales and you are rated working towards the National Quality Standard, you can reach out to ASEQA, the Quality Support Team, Dual Program Pathway Team, to engage in the quality support pathway. It's free, it's amazing, it's delivered by knowledgeable people to support you to meet or exceed the National Quality Standard. So do reach out to them if you are in New South Wales. If you're not in New South Wales, here are your regulatory authorities. We did say that ASEQA did not rate and assess services, but who does then? So each state and territory has their own, or your own, regulatory authority, or because we love our acronyms in early childhood, I'm going to say RA. And your RA is responsible for the approval, monitoring, and quality assessment of your service. It's your RA that rates and assesses your service against the National Quality Standard, or NQS, and the national regulations. They monitor and enforce compliance with the national law and regulations, including receive and investigate serious incidents, complaints, and they work with ASEQA to promote quality improvement and educate the sector and community about the National Quality Framework. So if you have any A&R or compliance questions, you can contact your RA or check out resources they offer to support you on their website. Although assessment and rating is a national process, there are some state and territory specific differences that you do need to be aware of. So if it's a national focus and you've got a question, contact the inquiries team at ASEQA. If it's a state-based specific question, or if you're not sure, contact your RA. Another just quick note, or another opportunity for our New South Wales attendees, but also this is an opportunity for everyone in all jurisdictions or states and territories to actually reach out to your RA to begin building a relationship and to discover what they can offer you. This is a New South Wales opportunity from the Continuous Improvement team, from the New South Wales Department of Education. It's offered by experienced authorised officers who are available to support your service as you engage in the self-assessment pathway, which is something that you have an option to do in New South Wales, or the quality improvement pathway. And you can request support from this awesome team either way. So just have a read on the screen of what's available for you. Just for a second, I can see there are 9 questions in the questions tab, whatever we call that. Might hop in soon, or if someone else can please hop in and answer those questions, that would be great. If not, again, they will be answered probably either tonight or on the PD in Your Pocket Facebook page. Okay, so it's your RA who conducts your A&R experience, but it's actually your authorised officer from your RA who will do your assessment and rating. And their role and responsibilities are actually set out by the national law. And in the law, they're actually called authorised officers, but job titles can actually vary across states and territories or jurisdictions, depending on their role and depending on the regulatory authority. So they may be called something else in your state. They are trained by a CEQA, and they're also their RA to triangulate, that is the 3-way evidence gathering, triangulate, not strangulate, triangulate evidence by following an observe, discuss and cite method of gathering evidence. They so that they can confidently assess how your service meets the elements and standards of the National Quality Standard, as well as compliance against the national law and regulations. So for example, let's think about element 1.1.2, child-centred. They would observe your experiences that you've set up for the day, how your learning environments are set up and how children are playing in it and how you're engaging with children in them as well. You would discuss with them why you planned these experiences and how they relate to your individual children. And then they would decide documentation that you show them, such as your program or observations of children's learning and development, that supports what they are observing and what you are saying. One thing that it's really good to know as a family daycare educator or service is that your AOs have been informed about the unique characteristics of family daycare. Specific training is provided to build their knowledge and understanding of assessing each quality area in your family daycare service and to adopt a family daycare, I say it again, lens when they visit the principal office and your home, educator's home or venue. So that's a really good thing to know, that they do have that lens when they come to your service. When they do come to your service, they will rate your service against the National Quality Standard. This is a document I'm sure you're all very familiar with. It is important to be familiar with. This is the minimum standard for quality of education and care that you are required to provide in your service. And it's part of the regulations, and it links directly to Quality Area 7, Governance and Leadership, specifically 7.2.1, Continuous Improvement. So remember, the law establishes the rules for providers and services, and the regulations provide the details or operational requirements on how you meet the law. And the National Quality Standard sets the benchmark for quality of the education care you provide at your service. So there are 7 quality areas. Each standards within the 7 quality areas, there are high-level outcome statements that you can turn into questions to understand or to reflect on whether it is evident in your practice, in your service. And underneath each standard are elements that describe how the standard is achieved. Again, you can turn those into questions too. So check out on the ASEQA website, there's a Quest for Quality game that steps into every quality area, and it's a really fun way that you can become familiar with a national quality standard. And also on the ASEQA website, which we'll have a look shortly at, or provide you with a link to, are the Meeting the National Quality Standard information summaries for plain English description. So they've come into your service and now they've looked at the national quality standards, they've looked at your practice, and now they're going to rate your service against them. They're going to give your whole service a rating for each of the 7 quality areas and an overall rating based on these results. So have a look at the slide. There are 5 quality ratings. I can see that someone's actually popped in there. Thank you very much, Rachel. My beautiful team member is on with us tonight. Thanks, Rachel. I can see you popped an answer to a question in there. Thank you so much. Rachel is one of Peak Training's trainer and assessors and one of our awesome team members. We have 3 awesome team members. So there are 5 quality rating levels that we have significant improvement required. So where the RA has identified that there are risks to the safety, health and wellbeing of children, there's working towards where the service delivers a safe program, but there are areas for improvement. We've got meeting where quality care and education is provided, and exceeding where a service goes above and beyond, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, above and beyond the quality areas in at least 4 quality areas. Now know that if your service is rated exceeding in all 7 quality areas, you can apply for the excellent rating, which is assessed against a different criteria altogether and awarded by ASEQA. So let's have a little deep dive into the NQS calculations just to understand a little bit. Your AO, Authorised Officer, will assess each element of the NQS as met or not met. So this then indicates if the standard is meeting or not meeting the national quality standards. One single not met means that the standard is not rated as meeting. And so once each standard is assessed, the quality area ratings are calculated. So let's use this example that you see on your slide to understand how they're calculated. All the elements in standard 7.2, you can see there, were met. And what's not included here is that all the elements of 7.1 were also met. So this would have meant that a meeting rating for quality area 7 would be provided. However, there was also evidence of the 3 exceeding themes in both 7.1 and 7.2. And what that means is all standards within quality area 7 were rated exceeding the national quality standard, and they received an overall exceeding rating for quality area 7. If, however, one of the exceeding themes were not present, but they still had all elements met, they would receive a meeting rating. So also, if any standard within a quality area has been rated working towards, I know this is a lot of information, but it's all available to you in the booklet, on the ASEQA website. If one element was rated working towards, one standard in the quality area is working towards, then the rating for that quality area is working towards. So in family daycare, an overall rating refers to the entire service. And this means that the AOs take the evidence they've collected from the principal office or coordination unit, along with the evidence collected from their visit to educators' premises to determine the one rating for the whole service. And when calculating the overall service rating, bear with me, if any quality area is rated working towards, the overall rating is working towards. If all quality areas are meeting, the overall rating is, yes, you guessed it, meeting. If all quality areas are at least meeting, and 4 or more quality areas are rated exceeding, with at least 2 of these being quality areas 1, 5, 6, or 7, the overall rating is exceeding. Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about exceeding. Here are your 3 exceeding themes. You can read on the page, on the slide, to receive the exceeding rating. you do need to demonstrate that your practice is above and beyond what's expected of the meeting level for each standard, and that those 3 exceeding themes that you can read on your screen are clearly demonstrated in practice across the whole service. So practice is embedded in service operations. Practice is informed by critical reflection, and practice is shaped by meaningful engagement with families and or community. You can hop into the guide actually to the National Quality Framework that provides reflective questions. So you can ask yourself whether you feel that your practice is exceeding. And this is also what the AOs look for when they're looking to see whether your practice is exceeding. Here's just a quick example. We've got of overarching questions for each exceeding theme. The first exceeding theme, the question is, are high quality practices consistent across the service? That means in your principal office, in your coordination unit, in every family daycare educator's home across the service. And if so, does the service have a process to ensure consistent high quality practices are in place regardless of the staffing situation on any given day? For theme 2, is the service reflecting on the practice for this standard? So if you are, does that mean that decisions that about your practice at the service can be linked back to critical reflection? And is this observable? And then theme 3, does the service engage with families and or the community in relation to this standard? And if so, where's the evidence of this? And just a quick note that I've highlighted down there about exceeding in National Quality Standard, Quality Area 1. You must meet the requirements of delivering a preschool program to children in the year that is 2 years before grade 1 of school, if you have them, as required under Regulation 62.2. So to be rated exceeding in Quality Area 1. And there are several ways to be able to do this, and some clear examples appear on the CEQA website. Looking at the time, pushing along, we're now going to look at the what to expect before, during and after an A&R visit, including hearing from an authorised officer, and then a little later from a family daycare manager and educational leader. So firstly, this slide is a summary of the steps in the A&R process. It is in your booklet, and it shows clearly that the A&R visit is only one point in time. It's only one part of the whole process. There is a broader journey that you can take towards continuous quality improvement. So this means that your service's quality rating is not determined just by the visit alone, and that's in your favour. There are multiple opportunities to provide evidence of your quality practices and commitment to continuous improvement in addition to the visit. So let's have a look at the self-assessment and quality improvement, which is ongoing. So your service conducts a self-assessment to determine the quality of the current practice against the national quality standards, and you link this to regulatory requirements, and your service identifies areas for improvement and strengths as a whole and ongoing basis and documents this as part of the self-assessment and in your QIP. We'll go into unpack that a little later. Week 1, you've been notified in writing that the A&R process has commenced, and your authorised officer will do their desktop review of your service. And this includes looking at your service's A&R history, compliance history, and current QIP or self-assessment when submitted. Then you've got your QIP in weeks 3 and 4, so that's when you will submit it, or your self-assessment if you are in New South Wales, to your RA before they come to visit, along with any other information that they may request. One of the key improvements that's happening nationally now is an enhanced focus on your self-assessment and QIP as part of that continuous quality improvement rather than a one point in time preparation for assessment and rating. So hop into your self-assessment process and update your QIP. Another key improvement that's occurring nationally is to make assessment and rating more effective, there will be a shorter notice period of around 1 to 5 days for most assessment and rating visits. ASEQA believes that the adjusted notice period will promote best practice in education and care service delivery, so that it's one of an always ready for ANR and for quality. And this meets the intent of observing and assessing typical practice, or rather than practice which we see is specifically prepared for ANR. So this is going to be introduced at different times in different jurisdictions or RAs. So reach out to your RA to discover when this might be. Also, for some services, if you're in rural or remote areas, and also a single educator model, longer notice may still be provided to enable appropriate access to the service and availability of educators. You also may have an opportunity for an online meet and greet. Grab it if you're offered that opportunity, and you're going to hear through 2 of the interviews tonight that it is recommended that you do grab that meet and greet with your AO before the visit. Speaking of the visit, this will happen around weeks 5 to 8. The authorised officer will visit your service, gather evidence using the observe, discuss, cite approach that we spoke of earlier, and they'll observe your practice, they'll have discussions with you, and they'll cite documentation. A visit will include attending the principal office at the family daycare service and a sample of educators. So the authorised officer will give notice of an educator sample to be visited, and your provider may be asked to submit their family daycare register of educators to support this decision. Depending on the size of the service, more than one AO may conduct the ANR, and a number of family daycare residences or venues may be visited. So in a small service, maybe 2 or 3 educators, they'll visit them all. In a larger service, they'll probably look for a sample of residences that reflect the diversity that exists in the service. Then feedback on your report. Your service receives the draft assessment and rating report, and you can give feedback on any factual inaccuracies. So I do encourage, if you're not happy with your rating, do provide feedback in the report and evidence to support your feedback. Then the final report is considered, feedback is considered before the final report is finalised. And then you can apply to your RA for a first tier review of your quality rating using the NQA-ITS system if you disagree with your rating. So you have a voice, use it, absolutely. And this must be completed and submitted within 14 calendar days of receiving the final assessment. You can then apply to ASEQA for a second tier review if you disagree with your first tier review rating. And this review is conducted by a ratings review panel by ASEQA. Then finally, once the review period has ended, the final ratings are published on the ASEQA website. If a second tier review is not requested, the ANR process is complete and you receive your rating certificate, and you can apply through ASEQA to receive a NQS rating logo. So you can do that through ASEQA. And then finally, another final improvement, key improvement, is the increased use of partial assessment and rating. And so that's something that you can reach out to your RA to discover when that might be. So now we're going to hop into an interview with Sam Gillett, and Sam Gillett is a New South Wales Authorised Officer at the New South Wales Department of Education. So let's have a listen to see what Sam has to say. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you with us. We're really wanting to learn more about you and your role. So how about we start there? Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and your connection to family daycare as well?
Thanks, Nikki. Currently, I work as an Authorised Officer for the New South Wales Department of Education in the Early Childhood Directorate, which is also often referred to as the New South Wales Regulatory Authority. So as an Authorised Officer, I've been part of family daycare monitoring and compliance visits and family daycare assessment and rating visits over a number of years. But prior to working at the department, I've worked in the sector in various capacities for the last 25 years, including working as a child development officer, or now called coordinator, with a family daycare service, as well as being a parent whose children attended family daycare services. So to me, family daycare is such an important part of our sector, especially in regional and remote areas. But more than that, often family daycare is an extension of a child's home and family.
I love that, Sam. I love that you're such a strong advocate for family daycare, and how lucky we are that we have you as an Authorised Officer with your strong advocacy and also your family daycare knowledge. That's great. I'm also interested, and I'm sure all our family daycare service leaders and educators who are with us here would like to know, what's your favourite part about being an Authorised Officer?
Well, my favourite part about being an Authorised Officer is supporting services. Working for the New South Wales Regulatory Authority, I'm currently placed in a team called the Continuous Improvement Team, where we support and guide services in how to engage in the process of self-assessment and how it can support ongoing improvement in their service. So that includes identifying, documenting key practices against the national quality standards, which in New South Wales can also be used to support the services assessment and rating visit. And we also help to answer their assessment and rating related questions, or support services with potential assessment and rating IT challenges, like helping services upload their key practices into the self-assessment and quality improvement planning portal. And my other favourite part of being an Authorised Officer is that I'm able to visit many services from different service types and meet many wonderful educators and others who work in various capacities in our sector.
Thanks, Sam. It sounds like you really, really do enjoy supporting and mentoring, and this position has provided you with this great opportunity for you to do this. That's awesome. Also, knowing a little bit about the Continuous Improvement Team, working with Authorised Officers and also speaking with you, I hear that relationships are at the core of this support, and that a key focus is partnering with services to achieve quality outcomes for children, families, and the team at the service. So I love that focus on partnerships, collaboration, and building those positive relationships to achieve those quality outcomes, which is the goal that all of us in this sector is aiming for and hoping continues in all our services. I just want to loop back to your share about the importance of family daycare in our sector. How would you describe the assessment and rating process in family daycare?
So before an assessment and rating visit occurs in family daycare services in New South Wales, the Authorised Officer calls the delegated person, it could be the nominated supervisor, the approved provider, to confirm that the service has an assessment and rating visit coming up. Then during the phone call, the Authorised Officer offers the approved provider or the nominated supervisor, coordinators and educators an opportunity for a pre-visit Zoom meeting. And so this meeting is conducted at a time that suits the approved provider, nominated supervisor, coordinators, educators, and the Authorised Officer. And it's through this meeting, it gives everyone in the service the opportunity to meet and hear from the Authorised Officer who's coming to the service, and helps everyone to become more confident with the assessment and rating process. So the Authorised Officer will talk about what to expect during the visit to increase educators' understanding of what might happen on the day and answer any questions that they might have. In my experience, educators have said that they've felt more comfortable going to an assessment and rating visit after they've seen and met the authorised officer online.
I think that's a great top tip that you've just shared there. If I were a service and you called me, or my RA called me for to notify of assessment and rating, and then my authorised officer called me to introduce themselves and offer me this opportunity for a pre-visit Zoom meeting, I'd absolutely accept it. It's such a great way to begin the relationship between the authorised officer and the service team. It's also like a lovely meet and greet, isn't it? And an opportunity to ask questions. Both sides, everyone involved can ask questions. Can start the assessment and rating process on the same page. And I think it's also great for educators to become more comfortable with the authorised officer and the whole assessment and rating process. Speaking about becoming more comfortable, though, I know our educators who are listening would like to learn a little bit more about the selection process. So how is the decision made as to which educators will be visited in their own homes?
Well, prior to the assessment and rating period, the provider of the family daycare service provides us with a list of active educators currently working at the service. So the service can nominate individual educators that they would like to be considered in the assessment and rating visit. But please note that these are only nominations. And while the authorised officer does prioritise to include these educators, there are a lot of factors to be considered when choosing which educators will be included at the assessment and rating visit. And then in New South Wales, authorised officers apply a risk-based approach when selecting how many and which educators will be visited on the day. So the number of family daycare educators to be visited are based on the number of active educators and other considerations, such as the service's compliance history. So that's all a factor there. But then going on from there, the assessment and rating visit includes a combination of announced and unannounced educator visits. So services should be also aware that additional educators may be visited during the assessment and rating visit to ensure that the service is able to showcase their practices and for the authorised officer to gather enough information to determine a fair rating. Then, the day before assessment and rating occurs, the service will receive further information about the visit, including the names of the educators who will be visited as part of the announced visits. Then, on the day of the assessment and rating visit, educators can have coordinators attend the visit with them for some additional support if they would like that. And it's always helpful to have relevant documentation available prior to the visit so that it's easy to access during the visit if needed. The authorised officer spends time at the principal office and educators' services to confirm the key practices and to gather additional evidence to help to determine the rating.
Thanks, Sam. I think you've just given us another great tip. And that is to have or invite coordinators to attend the visit with both the authorised officer and the educators in their home. I feel that, as you mentioned, that will really support the ease of the visit itself. The coordinators can be there as a prompt, I think, also because coordinators really do know their educators really well, and educators may feel a little bit nervous during the visit, and although they're already implementing awesome work or doing awesome work, they might forget some things. So having the coordinator there to remind you as the educator, I think that's a piece of gold that I think our educators can and coordinators here today can take away with them as well. So a few golden nuggets that are being dropped here today. So thank you very much. And given you've been in the role for a number of years and also have worked in family daycare, I'm sure you've seen some great examples of quality delivery, quality service delivery in family daycare. Can you share some of these?
Okay. Well, examples of quality practice can vary depending on the service and the service context. But what may be great for great practice for one service may not necessarily fit with the children, families, and educators at another. But 3 examples of good practice I've seen include, firstly, coordinators regularly visiting all educators face-to-face, and not just through Zoom or only visiting new educators regularly, but visiting all educators no matter their level of experience, and that they're all allocated the same amount of time. More experienced educators may not need as much support, but can help contribute to the service in many other ways. They may be given opportunities to share their knowledge and experience with newer educators, specifically in their areas of strengths or their interests. Secondly, acknowledging educators by having end-of-year celebrations with just the educators and their own families. An example of this was a formal dinner celebration with awards handed out to recognise individual educators and the work they do. And a lovely other practice I've seen is educators being supported to start their own self-assessment. So by doing this, educators become more aware of the national quality standards, laws and regulations, as they're having to confirm the law and regulations in the document and write their own key practices. Then, at visits with the coordinator, the educator can have discussions on key practices they've identified or areas of improvement in their own service. And then these ideas can be considered in the service's self-assessment and discussed at more formal meetings with all educators. This practice helped educators to have a more thorough understanding of the national quality standards and gave educators ownership of the service's self-assessment.
Wow, Sam, again, golden nuggets. These are great. Thank you. Can I just highlight here that I'll pull one of those nuggets out, the self-assessment practice that you just shared. And I'll highlight that we all know that a self-assessment is required for the whole service, but what a great way to get buy-in from educators and to support their professional growth by inviting them to do their own self-assessment. And then that feeds into the whole service self-assessment. I think that's a lovely strategy to implement. So finally, before we finish, sadly we're nearly finished, we're having a lot of fun here, but before we finish, I'm just wondering if you can share maybe one or more pieces of advice that you would give a family daycare service who has been called for assessment and rating.
Sure. So I've got some pieces of advice for family daycare services and educators who have been called for assessment and rating. Firstly, that it's okay and it's very normal to be nervous. And if you're asked a question by the authorised officer and you're not sure how to respond, it's okay to ask the officer to rephrase or repeat the question, or even ask them if you can have a moment to think about it before responding. It's okay to do that. The other thing is to remember that children are the priority. So authorised officers will wait for educators to respond to and attend to children's needs first before expecting educators to answer any questions. And lastly, and most importantly, assessment and rating is your time to shine and to showcase all the wonderful practices and work you do with children and families every day.
Sam, I couldn't agree more. I think with all of those top tips and shares, and I think if you remain focused on why you're here, that is for the children, that's why we're in this sector, and we remember the awesome work that we do, or the awesome work that you, the educators and service leaders, do with and for children every day. I'm hoping, we're all hoping, I'm sure you're hoping, Sam, too, that, and you'd have mentioned it, that you'll see assessment and rating as an opportunity to share this awesome work and shine. So embrace it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm sure our service leaders and educators have taken away many gems or golden nuggets, as I have mentioned throughout the interview, from this chat with yourself. So thank you very, very much. We really, really appreciate it and wish you all the best in your role. Thanks.
Thanks, Nikki. It was lovely being here.
Well, as I said, probably many times, yes, absolutely, golden nuggets. And we absolutely thank Sam, such a strong advocate for family daycare, and what a positive experience it would be to have her as our AO. So being prepared is what we're hoping to look at next. And this is remembering that ANR is one point in time, and it is prescribed by the National Quality Standard element 7.2.1 continuous improvement. There is an effective self-assessment and quality improvement process in place. So when this process of self-assessment is ongoing, you're always prepared for ANR, no matter if they step in without any notice, which won't happen. But you ensure that positive outcomes for your program, for your children and your environment are paramount and priority. And we highlighted that in the interview as well. It is about the children. So being prepared builds confidence. Being prepared also means knowing the resources and the professional development available to support you. And that's why I've included a toolkit image on this slide, because the call out, the invitation to you is to build your toolkit with these tools. And in the next part of the presentation, I'll share some practical top tips to prepare for assessment and rating. Let's start with before the visit. So you've received your notification. What are you going to do? Tip 1, choose a key contact person for the ANR process. So if it was someone, they would be contacting Sam, for example. This could be your approved provider or a service leader. They will be the key contact between your service and the RA in preparation for ANR, and they'll need to be available on the day of the visit as well. They'll be in contact with your AO before the visit. They can ask questions. You can give them questions to ask, and it's really important to start building a relationship with them to ensure that the process is as stress-free as possible. They could also inform families and yourselves and educators about the ANR process and when the expected date is for the visit. Top 2, know your stuff. When you and your team feel prepared, you feel more confident about sharing what you know, as well as how and why you do things. So a great way to build confidence about ANR, the process, is to become familiar with it, especially with the national quality standards, and is to add quality improvement and reflective practice as an agenda item during your regular meetings, your staff team meetings. Reflection is an important practice and should be part of all meetings. Document it too. And you can also hold specific reflective sessions. Tip 3, find resources. So there's a huge suite of resources available on the ASEQA website, but in other places as well out there. And on the ASEQA website, there's many under the NQF tab, the ANR tab, and resources and research tab as well. You'll find the guide to the NQF under the NQF tab. And you can use the reflective questions in the guide under each standard and element to provoke reflective discussions in your meetings. And then use strategies like brainstorming and mind mapping to document what quality looks like in a standard and or an element, and show your AO all of this reflective practice that you've been through. This is important. This is good stuff that you're doing, so showcase it. Now we're going to delve a little bit deeper into the next 3 tips: philosophy, self-assessment and practice. But first, let's look at the entire self-assessment as a continuous process cycle, and knowing that striving for best practice does underpin the commitment to continuous improvement. So have a look at this cycle that's up there, that's in the self-assessment book. from ASEQA, one of the modules that you can actually hop into on the ASEQA website and complete to learn more. Self-assessment is an opportunity for everyone to be involved, so involve everyone, and in this way everyone will be inspired and motivated to view continuous improvement as this positive tool to assist you to deliver the best outcomes for your children. This cycle, as I said, from ASEQA's book begins with an invitation, and it's actually from the self-assessment tool as well, an invitation to reflect on your service philosophy. So let's break this down. Let's see, what does this look like in practice? So we're going to start by reflecting on your service philosophy and purpose, and this is stated in 7.1.1. And remember, your authorised officer, your philosophy is so important. Your authorised officer has already read it before they arrive at your service. What will they do with it? They'll be looking for practice that aligns with it. So your service statement of philosophy, it tells a unique story of your service. It's different to the service down the road. It's different to the centre-based service or any other family daycare educator services down the road. Every service should have their own philosophy. It's your vision for your children and families. It guides all the decisions that you make for and with children, and it's really the why behind what you do and how you do it. So think about, have you and your educators read your philosophy recently? Does it still acknowledge the values and beliefs that are held by everyone at your service? And if not, perhaps it's time for a review. Your service philosophy is something that everyone should be able to read and understand, so not too long, not too much jargon. So think about what you'd include in it and how it would be presented. I've seen lots of philosophies, and some services have chosen to include short statements. Some services, the statements of beliefs, and some services have used images with just small amounts of text underneath to support the images. I've seen mind maps as philosophies as well. I've seen photos as philosophies. There's really no right or wrong way, just a way that suits the context of your service, and so it's accessible for everyone. Keep the language and the format as user-friendly as possible, and think about whether you, as a service leader or educator, would be able to talk to your philosophy, articulate it to an authorised officer or to your colleagues or to your families as well. So let's break down the self-assessment into 3 steps. Here's another top tip. Hope you like the light bulb top tip image. Step 1 is about regulatory compliance. So this involves analysing what you do against the law and the regulations. And so if a non-compliance is identified during your own self-assessment, address the issue immediately. Also, there's no need to record compliance as a strength unless it's identified that the service is going beyond the minimum requirements. Hop into step 2. Identify your key practices against the National Quality Standard. Critically reflect on your current practice at the service. Identify and reflect on what you do well. Think about the practices you're super proud of as evidence of quality against the National Quality Standards. These are your strengths. And there's a number of ways to do this. A few examples include taking and sharing photos of quality practice as evidence and mapping them against the quality area standards and elements. Walking in an AO shoes. I did promise that's going to happen. It will happen later. I'm mindful of the time. We may go a little bit over tonight, but hopefully you can stay with me or listen to the recording. We will walk in the AO shoes we'll do that in an educator's home, but you can do that in the principal office as well. Choose a quality area to focus and reflect on in your meetings and document these practices, maybe in a mind map. You might like to do this weekly or fortnightly or even monthly. And step 3, plan for quality improvement. And that is your QIP, quality improvement plan. Decide which areas you'd like to improve. They're your goals. Think about how you're going to achieve your goals. Remember, keep them achievable. Do the SMART method. These will become your strategies. Add your service strengths and areas for improvement. And someone's just asked where they can find the recording. This recording will be available on the website by the end of this week. Regularly update your QUIP at least once a year according to Regulation 56. Yes, it is a regulation. Then after identifying your service strengths and areas for improvement, transfer them directly into your QUIP. Remember, your self-assessment identifies areas for improvement, and your QUIP then prioritises these improvements. You're welcome, Mara. Your QUIP does not need to cover all the quality areas, so don't do too much. Just work smarter, not harder. What is it that you'd like to achieve, and how are you going to achieve it, and what are your strengths? Think about your exceeding themes as well. And only identify those that you would like to improve as needing to meet the national quality standard. So again, I hope you've got your toolkits ready, everyone. Whack a few of these in your toolkit. The self-assessment tools you see here from a CEQA on the left and New South Wales Department of Education on the right are really great ways to help you through the process of self-assessment. If you're not in New South Wales, it doesn't matter. It's still a good document that you might like to have a look at, or reach out to your RA to see what they have available to you. They are optional, so it really is up to you if you'd like to use them. But these, coupled with the New South Wales Family Daycare Association's What to See, Say and Show for family daycare educators, will help you identify your strengths, areas of compliance, practices that are exceeding the national quality standard, and areas for opportunities for quality improvement. So if you do use any tools, though, think very carefully about how you might like to share it with your educators to use, or if they wish to assess their own practices with their own tool and share that to inform the whole service QUIP, which is a great idea as well. Self-assessment documentation is not required to be submitted to the RA unless in New South Wales you opt into the self-assessment pathway. Evidence, however, for your service, how you demonstrate that you have engaged in a self-assessment process and how it has informed your QUIP is required. And just another little note on the What to See, Say and Show educator resource. This links to all the 40 elements of the NQS and to version 2 of the EYLF and MTOP. It's soon to be available on the association's website. It has been updated. We will let you know when it is available, or keep an eye on the website. And it really is a perfect way for educators to prepare, for all of you actually, to prepare for assessment and rating, especially for the visit. So think about a particular element each day, perhaps. Find out what you could see, say and show about that element using the examples in this resource as a starting point. Just a quick reminder of the guide to the National Quality Framework. Hop into Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is going to be your best friend. And Chapter 3 includes reflective questions for each standard and examples of what an AO might observe, cite and discuss. There's a QR code that you can go straight there. These symbols that you see on the slide make it really easy to recognise information and are specifically guidance for you, family daycare, and also birth to 3 if you have birth to 3 age children and if you have school age children. So make friends with the guide. It is a 600+ page document, but hop into Chapter 3. That will be your friend, and I'll share shortly another friend that is a practical way to understand parts of the guide or summaries to the national quality standards. Now, we have another interview for you. And before we slip into our AO shoes for the next strategy, let's listen to Kim Hawkins, the manager and educational leader at Greater Hume Family Daycare. It is a 40-minute interview, and we will still step into the AO shoes afterwards. So if you can stay on, fantastic. If not, you can listen to the recording on the website. So let's listen to Kim now. Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining us today. I'd love to take this opportunity to congratulate you and all at Greater Hume Family Daycare on receiving the Exceeding National Quality Standard rating. I'm so excited that our service leaders and educators will hear about your assessment and rating experience here today. So to start, I'm just wondering, can you share a little about Greater Hume Family Daycare and your role?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Nikki. So we are a council-run service, family daycare service. We are just shy of 30 years in operating, which is amazing. So we have a birthday next year, which we're celebrating. We have around 50 educators, which, because we are a border town, we stretch across New South Wales and Victoria. So, and our footprint is quite large. So I guess the longest educator or distance that we travel to see one of our educators is around 2.5 hours. So we're spread right across a large footprint, which is challenging but amazing too, because we have such a diverse group of educators. Part of our, I guess, our portfolio for children's services is we also have 4 long daycare centres that are dotted around our rural areas in our shire, so that while I don't have as much to do with those, I certainly am aware, and we interact quite regularly, which is terrific. A team here, so we have our coordination unit consists of 3 of our practice mentors, and also we have a dedicated administration and family liaison officer and myself. So we work together to support our educators. I'm the service manager, so I guess, you know, I'm nominated supervisor and all the responsibilities that come with that. But I think that the best part of my work here is being able to support our team to be able to support our educators, and that's a terrific opportunity for me, and I really love that part of my job. The other part of my job that I love is being educational leader. So I get to step back into that space, which I love, around programming and supporting our educators, whether it be them upskilling to their diploma or just their program and that individual one-on-one that I can offer them with resources and all sorts of things. So that's pretty much us, I think.
That's amazing. Such a large, vast area that you cover would really bring a lot of diversity within each of the services as well. And I noticed that you spoke to the title Practice Mentor.
Yes.
And Practice Mentor is, would you say, are your coordinators?
They are.
Yes.
Yes, they are. So people would normally know them as support coordinators. But we, I guess probably 3 years ago now, really looked and reflected and spent a lot of time looking at that role. It is so diverse and so dynamic and difficult and challenging at times, amazing other times. But we really wanted to align ourselves better with our educators. And this philosophy around being a mentor really resonated with us, and it's really helped us, I guess, change our approach a little with our visits with our educators, really looking at how we can work beside them rather than over the top of them, and support and encourage and, I guess, be a mentor through modelling and that kind of thing. So the name really suited the role we felt, and we've worked ever since, I guess, that changeover to really ensure that we are fulfilling that philosophy around mentorship and teamwork, and not being that person that comes in over the top of our educators. And it's helped immensely to build relationships and connections, which is ultimately what we would want.
I really love that. And what sings out from that is that whole collaborative partnership way of leading and being and walking alongside each other to support each other to reach the outcomes that you want to achieve, which ultimately, as we know, are positive outcomes for children. You went through that whole reflection process to arrive at that decision, which is very much a practice that we all know. I mean, it's not something only for assessment and rating, critical reflection. It's something that's ongoing as part of our continuous improvement cycle. But it is something that is to be articulated through the A&R process and on the day of A&R. So that kind of leads me into my next question.
Yes.
And what I'd love to do is hop into what your experience for the whole A&R process, what was it like? And feel free to take us from notification or from notice to receiving your rating.
Yes.
Wherever you like.
Certainly, we'll start at the beginning. Well, there's a lot of preparation that goes in prior to receiving that notification. It's coming up. We were very fortunate. We got our dates from our assessor. She made contact with me. We also were able to know who the educators were that were going to be assessed. So for us, it was 5 educators that would be assessed over a period of 5 days. So through that process, we were able to support those educators and really prepare them even more so than we had already done for all of our educators. So that transparency was really critical for us. We by this stage knew our schedule. She was very transparent with us around what was going to happen each day, who she was going to visit each day, and really, it just settled us a little to know in advance what was going to happen, and it was terrific. The next thing that happened was our assessor organised a Zoom meeting for our educators, which was brilliant. And I would highly recommend, if that opportunity does arise for any service, to take it, because it really allowed our educators really to shift from, that scary person that they don't know and to this normal person that they could now put a face to the name. She was terrific. She really reassured our educators. She went through what she was looking for. She explained what the visit would look like, and she really reinforced that she was looking at ways for us to show how we shine and how to bring the best out in us. And our educators, the feedback since then has been really amazing, because it just eased them into the process a lot more than that whole who's it going to be, what's she going to be like, all of that kind of thing. So that was terrific. The other thing that was really terrific throughout the process as it was happening was that our assessor attended one of our playgroups, our educator playgroups. Amazing. So we were fortunate enough to be able to share with her one of our bush playgroups, which a little bit scary in a sense, because we know that there's risk involved, and yeah, we had real tools and all of that sort of thing. We just did our thing, and she sat in the sunshine and watched us for 2 hours and watched our educators and the beautiful connections that were so evident, and the confidence that our children had in that space. So it really showcased our philosophy, and she could see it there in front of her. So that part of the process was amazing too. And again, if a service feels confident to do that, if it's not offered, maybe ask if that can happen, so that the assessor can really get a feel for your service. So that was really terrific. And I guess, it was a long 5 days, of course. We were all pretty tired by the end of it, but as I said, the schedule and all of that made it so much easier. And we didn't know how we felt we had done okay, but we certainly weren't expecting the exceeding. We were just so floored by it when the announcement came through, and we had to read it 100 times to see that we were actually reading it. Someone else, can you read this? But it was terrific, and just really a great reward for all the effort that we had put in.
Yeah, oh, that's wonderful. And as I was listening to you, Kim, there were words jumping out that I feel some of our, or probably all of our service leaders and educators are going to be either madly writing or listening back to this interview. One of them was philosophy. And you mentioned that this is what the Authorised Officer saw in action during your Bush Kinder playgroup. What an awesome opportunity for that to happen. And, it's not just about at Bush Kinder, but it's your philosophy that underpins all your decisions and practices every day with and for children. So it's your living and breathing document that guides you. It's the best guide that you can have. So knowing your philosophy is key. And then the Authorised Officer would be looking for, because they have read your philosophy, looking for the connections and mapping it against the practices that they see in your visit. The other one that came jumping out at me was the Zoom meeting, and it's something that I hear is very welcomed and something that is highly encouraged by a lot who've been through it, who have experienced it.
Yeah.
So if it is on offer for any of our service leaders, grab that opportunity, because it does support the beginning of the building of that positive relationship, which is so important in framing the assessment and rating as a positive experience right from the beginning. So, and then the other word that jumped out at me was prepare, which is wonderful, but because we know that it's always nerve-wracking knowing someone's going to come into your service to examine your practice, to ask questions. But I just feel that being informed about the process and what to expect, which is what you've done for us now, so thank you very much, really supports service leaders and educators to feel more comfortable about assessment and rating, and hopefully reduces their nerves. But also, I think being prepared supports that confidence. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you prepared for assessment and rating, please.
So lots of things we did. Our practice mentors had they put together a plan of scheduled topics, focus areas for each of their visits, so the consistency was right across all the visits, and just different areas of maybe a different standard, or it might be just, a checklist or something like that they were focusing on, which really helped. We also sent lots of emails out. I was doing a lot of that, and, sharing checklists and reminders and tips and tricks and that kind of thing, which was great. The other thing that we really, benefited from was our leadership group. So we have a handful of our educators that represent different geographical parts of our footprint, and they represent then in turn their geographical area, and I meet with them regularly throughout the year. And we talk about the big stuff and the big decisions, and we get to share a lot of information, and that information then can go back to those pods of educators, which I think really allowed all of our educators then to have a voice in this process, because they could feed back to our leadership group members, and then they could then share that with me and vice versa. So the communication was open and transparent again, which was terrific. And for those educators that weren't interested in a Facebook post or didn't want to comment, or, didn't really want to respond to emails, they had that opportunity as well. So we opened it up in a variety of ways, so all of our educators had a voice in some way. I guess the other thing that was really important for us was check-ins. We did lots of regular check-ins just to make sure that our educators were okay and travelling okay. And those visits, we upped the visits a little bit in that lead up to it, so that our practice mentors could really get a gauge, I suppose, of how they were travelling, and if there were any extra support we could offer for them. The other thing we offered was an information session. So we had all our educators come into our office, and we ran them through what it was going to look like, answered lots of questions. Great opportunity to connect with each other and share how they were feeling. We also offered to any educator that was interested a mock A&R. So we would go out and offer that opportunity to just sort of go through a fairly informal run-through of what a visit from an assessor might look like. I guess the biggest thing we did, and if people can, take anything away from today, this really helped us, and we built a portfolio of evidence. So it was quite big, and everything was in there. So we made sure we covered all standards. We had every little thing and every big thing that we had done. So, or that we had implemented or introduced or anything like that. And I think it's important to remember that those little things, the things we do every day, don't forget those, because an assessor can really use that in their assessment. The things we take for granted, but really can be put into one of those standards and really used as evidence. The big things, of course, were great. So we even photocopied Facebook posts. We had a selection of those. We photocopied forms that we developed. We, had lots of photos of different play groups and that kind of thing. So everything went into this portfolio. What that meant was that we didn't have to go scrambling for things. It was all there in one place. The other terrific thing about that was that our assessor took it with her each night. So she had some lovely reading at night time. But anything we'd forgotten or missed, she could then see in our portfolio, and she was madly putting that stuff into her assessment. So that was a really a good thing that we did, and I would really highly recommend doing that if you're looking at your preparation.
Wow, Kim, so many golden nuggets here. I'm just trying to think of which ones do I pick up to share again. Just seems like there's so many opportunities for communication, and communication is key. Yeah. And communication and practice. So communication through your Facebook group, communication through your leadership group, which is an awesome idea, communication through the coordinator's focus, which is per visit, which is also another awesome idea, because your coordinator or your practice mentors are going in with a very clear idea of what they're focusing on for that visit in preparation for assessment and rating. And we know that it's not just about assessment and rating again, it's about your everyday practice. But when you're called for assessment and rating, that is your focus. Yeah. So, having that all those avenues and channels for communication. Having a prepared folder or portfolio is also another great idea. And some might have them in hard copy. So great bedtime stories for your authorised officer, as you mentioned. And others might have that in soft copy. Yeah, the computer, which is easy to access. It's another way of doing it. Yeah. So some great top tips there, and just so many opportunities for educators to practice, I guess, recognising the awesome work that they do as well. Yeah. And I think you kind of have answered the next question, which was we're hoping to dig a little bit deeper into how you supported your educators to be comfortable with the process and confident in articulating and, of course, celebrating their practice. But I feel that a lot of what you just shared is part of that too. So putting it into words to articulate it with your practice mentors, with your families, with the children themselves, with yourself as the ed leader, but also, of course, on the day, the authorised officer. So it really does help build their confidence, but also hopefully to welcome assessment and rating as an opportunity to share their awesome work. Did you have anything else to share about that?
Yeah, I think that, I guess, a big key for us was transparency. So in that preparation, preparing ourselves and also preparing our educators was around everything we knew, they knew, and when we knew it, they knew it. So I think that's part of the trust, building that trust that we weren't keeping it all to ourselves and just sort of springing it on them. That transparency along every step of the process was really important for us, so that they were part of the journey. If you're going to bring people along, they need to feel like they are part of it and that they own it. And that was really important for us. And really reassuring our educators that, as you said, that it's their time to shine, and it's their time to really embrace the things that they're good at and really focus on the things that they really enjoy and are good at. And that comes through, I think, in the discussions and the conversation that they have with the assessor and that we had with the assessor as well.
And it sounds to me, I mean, the lens that you carry throughout your service, and it seems to be consistent across the service, is that strength-based approach, seeing the positives in everything that everyone does. And also, I think, being mindful of the fact that, as you mentioned, that there might be some gaps in knowledge or there might be some areas for improvement, but that's all part of the path, and that's to be addressed. And I'm sure that would be, some quick goals, etc., that you may have included. Absolutely. And having transparency across all of that with everyone builds that trust and confidence. So thanks for that. I think that was a great addition to answer that question. And then also, speaking of answering questions, yes, and also articulating practice, I'm sure our service leaders and educators here today would love to hear maybe some examples of the types of questions the authorised officer asked during the visit, and perhaps if you can marry it with some evidence that you provided to support them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, also maybe thinking around the observe, cite, discuss method.
Yeah, well, we talked a lot about, the see, say, show method, or, just thinking about that with our educators, because it just makes sense, and it was so helpful to really break things down. And this is what they want to see, this is what you need to show, and this is what, you need to say. So breaking it down, we had lots of handouts around that we shared with our educators. The types of questions, well, there's lots, but, there's those standard questions around, currency. So you're obviously working with children checks and first aid and asking for medical management plans and those kind of documents, making sure that you've got those on hand and easily accessible. And as you said, they often are, for us, they were soft copies, a lot of those documents. So making sure we could access that quickly when we needed to. So they did ask about those sorts of things. They asked about our educators' emergency evacuation plans. They asked us, what's their process? What do they have their floor plans up on the wall and what's on those? So we were able to evidence those by showing them what we use and the process around that. All our policies and procedures obviously back a lot of that, which our assessor had already had access to, but we were able to refer to specific policies and procedures that backed what we were, we're expecting of our educators and the processes around things. We were asked about our orientation process for our new educators, which was, me sort of talking her through how we onboard and how we recruit and what sort of methods we use and what sort of training we offer our new educators, so that that they can they understand their regulatory requirements and expectations. I was asked specifically about quality area 1, so there was a lot of discussion around
the educational leader, right?
And the educational leader, exactly. So that was there was big discussions around that, quite specific. She was clearly working through the dot point. Just making sure. She was really interested in how I shared information with our educators, the sort of training that we had offered, and again we had evidence of that. So we had the PowerPoint presentations we'd done in some of our training. We some of our we had written articles for some of our local newsletters, so that included some of the specific training we had offered. So we had that as evidence. And we talked about, I talked about resources and how I met the educators where they're at as far as their programming is concerned. We got asked lots of questions around enrolments, and we showed our enrolment forms and things like that. So pretty much prepared for all of those sorts of questions. I think it's really important to be prepared for quality area 1. Whether it be, the service manager or whoever the educational leader is, needs to be really and have some hard evidence of what they've done with their educators in that space.
And I guess also as an educator working in your service, because you had that transparency over everything and everyone was involved in the journey together, that there would be no surprises in that. If you're going to be saying something which aligns with your philosophy,
yes,
they're going to also be saying the same sort of thing that aligns with the philosophy, which is very much about consistent quality practice, which across the service does indicate exceeding themes.
Yes.
Speaking about exceeding things, congratulations again on receiving the exceeding rating. And as I just mentioned, so to receive this rating, high quality practice does need to be consistent across the service, across the 3 themes. Can you maybe give an example, and that was one already, but can you give another example of how you demonstrated this? So you did mention you were surprised when you received the exam.
We were. I think for us, I think we have a really good understanding around the fact that we have 50 educators that are all going to be operating and functioning at very different levels in very unique ways. And that is a huge challenge for family daycare and for maintaining that consistency across all of our educators. I think it's also really important that it's also seeing that it's not just a challenge, it's also one of our greatest assets in family daycare, that uniqueness, that each service is going to be quite different, We have families that have choice around the type of service that they want, and understanding for us that each educator going in, as I said earlier, meeting them where they're at. So, yes, there'll be some inconsistency. There's going to be inconsistency amongst the skill level and knowledge and qualifications and all of that kind of thing. But the consistency comes from us, where we are delivering the consistent information across the service. We have the consistent expectations, but we're meeting our educators where they're at.
But also what I'm hearing is this really beautiful, inclusive way of working with everyone. And I'm sure that would have also come across with your authorised officer. So recognising the diversity that is within each or within your service and working through that strength-based approach to support them, every educator, for where they're at, and that gentle professional growth invitation that you provide throughout those conversations, and all the amazing strategies that you implemented and shared earlier. So I think I love what you've just said, is that the consistency comes from yourself. So yourself as the nominated supervisor, the educational leader, the manager, but also all your service leaders, and how the communication between you then cascades to the educators, but it's the same messaging all the time across all of the educators' homes as well.
We won't compromise in quality, and certainly meeting the requirements that we need to meet. But within above that benchmark, we sit everywhere, and we embrace that, because that's, for us, that is what makes family daycare so unique and so amazing.
Absolutely, and meeting is that high benchmark. Yeah. So to have to receive a meeting rating, that's what you're aiming for, and to have anything above, such as yourselves exceeding, as you said, a surprise and a welcome surprise. But working authentically and working with the passion and the dedication and the commitment that you all have, and together, has supported your service to achieve that. And the second last question is something I like to ask most services that have already been through A&R, and that is, what did you wish you knew before you went through assessment and rating? And I guess this is for yourself, or for any educators or anyone else that you've had conversations with. What did they wish that they knew?
Well, the feedback was resoundingly from our educators around, we wish that they had realised it wasn't going to be as scary as they had imagined it was going to be. And I suppose, that's human nature, and it didn't matter what we sort of said, that educators were always going to feel fearful and I guess scared of that unknown. But after going through it, it was sort of like, oh gosh, that wasn't so bad. and I've reached out recently to our educators around that, and that was definitely what they want other educators to know, that it's not as scary as it may seem. And once you sort of get into it, the assessors are there for a while. Once you get into it, you're just doing your thing. And the biggest advice that we got from our assessor on that was, in preparation for them for the visit, was to have all of their evidence on their kitchen table. So whack it all there, their program, all their documentation, examples of excursion forms, examples of incident reports, all that they needed, that we had worked with them to know that they need, have it all there. And what that meant was the assessor was just able to sort of file through that. There wasn't all of that questioning that we associate sometimes with assessment and rating. How do you do this? How do you do that? It was all there on the kitchen table, and our assessor in her own time could work through that. And if there was anything missing, then of course there were some questions. But it really, really helped our educators to not feel like there was going to be an inquisition, an interrogation, because it was just all there. And anything that was not there, they could go and find. So that was terrific. And that alleviated, that was that whole, it was not that scary. It was really quite an okay experience.
So hopefully everyone listening today will take that message and feel a little bit more comfortable and more welcoming of assessment and rating. So it's not that scary if I've shown you before and have everything available on the kitchen table as well.
There you go, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. Sadly, Kim, we're coming to our last question, and I say sadly because I think this has been amazing. And just wondering, do you have one or more pieces of advice maybe that you'd like to give a family daycare service who's been called for assessment and rating?
Look, I think that I think you need to shift your focus. The best thing we did was to shift our focus around being worried and anxious and scared to this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to sell ourselves. We know we're doing great things. Let's share that. And yes, there will be things that we aren't working so well on or could do better. A really important thing that we ensured throughout the preparation was that any of those things that we felt, oh gosh, maybe we're not doing so well on, be able to explain that to the assessor. Don't hide it. It's there, but show them what are your plans to move forward and improve. So while there's always going to be things you're not doing so well, but I think it really helps sell your service by saying, yeah, we're working on that. We've got this, and this in place, and this is what we're doing moving forward. So use the opportunity to really market yourself and sell yourself, and focus on the things that you're really passionate about, because when you talk about the things that you're passionate about, it comes out. It's easy to talk to. You come across as enthusiastic, and that flows through the whole, I guess, feel of the visit. So we encourage our educators to do that. Whatever you're good at, the things you love, talk about them. And the assessor can then see the passion and the, I guess, the enthusiasm, and that came through for us as well. And I think, the other big thing that we encouraged our educators to do was to, if they weren't sure of what the question was or what they were being asked, to say that. Oh, look, can you just explain that in a different way? Or is this what you're asking? I'm not sure if I understand. But having their practice mentor there, because we made sure that practice mentors were there to support our educators, they could step in a little if they were able to and say, oh, remember, that's where that goes, or re-explain the question. So don't be frightened as an educator to ask or say, I don't understand, can you please explain it again? And then at the end, always ask, is there anything else I need to show you? Is there something I haven't shown you? Is there anything else you need to know from me? So don't sort of walk away from it, wanting, put it all out there, show everything and ask the questions and make sure that you've covered all your bases. So that was probably the way we approached that made all the difference.
That's great. I love the message, sell yourself. Sell yourself on the day. It's a really strong message, because it is about having the opportunity to share what you do and what you do well, and then honing in what you're passionate about, because I know when I'm speaking to educators and they're sharing something with me that they're truly passionate about, they've got that glint in their eye, that twinkle.
Absolutely.
And it's just a joyous thing to be part of that conversation. The other part was have the confidence to ask them to repeat the question or to explain the question. And then the last beautiful bit was having the practice mentor or coordinator there with them, because your coordinators and your practice mentors know your educators really well. And if an educator is caught in a moment, the coordinator or the practice mentor can just remind them of some awesome practice that they've seen, so that they can carry on. Sometimes it takes for an external person to remind us of some of the things we do.
And when you're nervous, of course,
Absolutely.
It's just nice to have that backup. And the other good thing about having the practice mentor there is that they already know the children. They've built that connection, so it can be unsettling for children when someone new comes into the environment, and when your assessor comes in, that can be really daunting, and sometimes their behaviour changes. So to have the practice mentor there that had already built those relationships with those educators, with those children, and that connection, it made all the difference. They could sit down and just maybe read a book, or really just keep that calm environment happening. that would then ease the stress that the educator may have been under. So it was a win-win for us.
Absolutely. And I think this is a beautiful way to end, because we're ending on the children and the importance of keeping them front and centre of mind. So having your coordinator there who knows the children well can support that ease of a new, different, unknown person as the authorised officer coming into the service, and another opportunity for them to be able to connect with the coordinator if their educator is busy answering questions or providing documents. So that is a wonderful way. And having spoken to authorised officers myself, they appreciate that. They do appreciate knowing that you're thinking of your children. So if they do ask you a question and a child is asking a question at the same time, it would be the child that comes first.
Absolutely.
All the
Absolutely.
time.
And we would totally encourage that with our educators, that, you know, that is exactly, you are there for those children. They didn't ask for all of this to be going on. They're doing their thing. They don't know any different, and it really then models again our philosophy that the children are at the heart of everything we do, and we would encourage all educators to keep that in mind and know that most assessors will see that as well. Yeah,
and be looking for that too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kim. Some great tips. I'm sure everyone listening will agree that you've shared lots of gems and takeaways today. So with that, I just want to thank you for sharing your assessment and rating journey. And the service leaders and educators can take home those golden nuggets, or gems, as we say, and tuck them into their assessment and rating toolkit. And then here's an invitation for everyone listening to please share them on. So maybe those who were unable to come today and listen in on Kim's amazing interview, please do continue sharing, because it is about us advocating and supporting the sector as a whole, and supporting everyone to be the best educator or service leader that they can be. And Kim certainly has demonstrated that along with your service, Kim. So thank you. And wishing you all the best for your continuous improvement journey, and looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thanks, Kim. Okay, thanks everyone. I'm seeing in the chat that you've enjoyed that interview. We do have a little bit more to go. You're welcome to stay on. I'll keep powering through. There's some more information to share with you, some strategies. Thanks to Kim. I met Kim recently in person, which was lovely, as well as doing that interview online, and really a rock star. So I'll share all of your feedback with her. And if you're on tonight, Kim, you may be. Thank you so much. This has been really valuable. I did promise you the walk in the AO shoe strategy. Here it is. And I've supported multiple services to do this, to give it a go, a self-assessment strategy in preparation for A&R. I took an extra pair of shoes with me into the service. It was usually my UGG boots. I love my UGG boots, my pink UGG boots. It can be anything. If done with a strength-based approach and a lens of support, it can be a really light-hearted, fun way of supporting educators as an ed leader or a coordinator to identify their strengths and how to articulate or talk to the AO about these. So walk in the AO shoes, see your service through their eyes, begin your service self-assessment by identifying what the authorised officer might observe, discuss or cite about the quality practices. So let's set the scene. If you're still here with me, let me know what shoes you'd like to put on. Take your shoes off, put your new shoes on that you're changing into to slip into character. I told you it's my UGG boots. What's it for you? Let me know. Pop it in the chat if you like, just for a bit of extra fun. And then I invite you to step into each national quality standard, each element over time, to identify areas of strengths. Oh, we've got socks and loafers. Wonderful. Love it. And slippers too. Great. And flats. And runners, my goodness, you've all thought of more things than me. So really do take this opportunity of quality improvement self-assessment. Refer to section 3 in the guide. Remember, section 3 is going to be your friend for the questions to support you as you critically reflect on these practices, and any additional questions that are included for family daycare. You can use those as well. Use the key words from the standard and element descriptor when documenting those key practices. Be really specific. Use the New South Wales Family Daycare Association's what to see, say and show, which is a really practical way. I love bare feet too. Someone's just popped that in the chat, of identifying specific examples. Be honest, be realistic, make your practices visible. Consider how maybe a visitor or an AO to your service can cite, observe or discuss your practice. And remember to chat with each other about what was observed, cited and discussed, and together document that in your quip. So walking in your AO shoes, what do you notice? You will notice, let's use element 1.3.1 as an example. If this element, standard 1.3.1 is, and you can read what that is on the slide, if this is an area of quality, you would see as the AO or observe educators using their knowledge of each child to reflect on their program and planning and how it supports that child. You would see or observe educators observing and recording information about each child's learning and development. I'm smiling because socks came through in the chat, including what they know, what they can do and what they understand. You would see educators being intentional in their strategies they use to plan leisure-based experience for the school-age children and documentation of children's learning being displayed. The educator would say or discuss with you how they document each child's learning, interest, ideas, knowledge and abilities to use for future planning, and how they decide on meaningful or wow moments to document or assess those observations. Ways they might involve families and children in the planning and assessment of the program, and how the service's educational leader supports them. The educator will show you, and you will cite as the AO walking in the AO shoes, children's documentation, such as samples as it supports the planning cycle, or observations and analysis of children's learning with colourful toe socks. Okay, we're really having fun now, and fairy slippers. Observations and analysis of children's learning with suggested follow-up experiences that have informed the program. You might see the philosophy that has featured in this session, the services philosophy, the policy on implementation of an educational program, evidence that families have been encouraged to provide information about their program, or evidence of reflections about children's learning and their practices with their coordinator, and how this has influenced change practices in the program. From there, you are then going to document areas for improvement. So you've documented what you can see, what can they say and what they show, but now what are the gaps? What do you want to do? You've identified those, but there's more you want to do. So what are the opportunities for improvement? Practices that were not observed, and capture these in a mind map, just like this is just an example. This one is for 1.3.3, information for families. And remember, this is the concept for this standard. So the descriptor can be turned into the question. So for example, how else can we inform families about the program and their child's progress? Brainstorm ideas that support this element, which you believe is a strength. And again, here are some examples, and then choose the opportunities for improvement that you wish to make happen. These now become your goals in your quip. Then practice. There was a question that came through about educators whose English may be their second, third, fourth language. How will they feel confident to talk with an authorised officer, it's practice. Start talking about your practices, your philosophy behind these. Would you feel, and your educators feel confident discussing the service philosophy and how it informs decisions? Would you be able to describe this along with what you do and how and why you do it to your families, children, each other, management and community? So clearly communicate and showcase the what, the why and the how you do what you do with other educators, with your families, your coordinator, your educational leader. Use the language of the early years learning framework, My Time, Our Place, national quality standard. Invite others to share their thoughts so you can critically reflect together and document this on each other's practices, and rehearse for the A&R visit by building a bank of phrases that you might use. So have them on little phrase cards that you can hand out to your educators and they can practice as well. The day of the visit, just going through this slide quickly, you heard you can request a coordinator to support you. Have the documents ready and easily accessible, like that folder on the kitchen bench. Welcome the AO into your home as you would a guest. Introduce the AO to your children. That's important too. The children need to know who's just walked into their space, and the AO will appreciate that. Be with the children, engage in experiences and your usual rhythm of the day. That's what your AO wants to see. Discuss your program and why you've chosen the experiences for that day, including any critical reflections you have. Engage with your coordinator, families and children about the program. Shine. Absolutely shine. Share why you love family daycare. Remember, talking about something you're passionate about, the glint in your eye. You won't even need to rehearse that. Confidently ask the AO to repeat, reframe a question, or for more time to think about the answer. And definitely ask, as Kim said, the AO, is there anything else that they would like to see, say, or show, observe, cite, or discuss? New South Wales Department of Education have this fact sheet that you can see on the slide that everyone can actually access in all states and territories, because it's really helpful for all, and it explains the assessment and rating process. So just Google the title being Assessment and Rating for Family Daycare Educators, and then download the PDF and share it with everyone. So we've come to the end. Just very, very quickly, it is important after the visit to celebrate, debrief, acknowledge and celebrate. We heard Sam, the AO, mention this in our chat. It's so, so important to have the opportunity to talk about how you felt before, during and after the A&R visit. Think of ways you can celebrate your journey together and acknowledge everyone for their efforts and commitment. While the A&R process doesn't finish once the visit finishes, it's still important to acknowledge that the visit is complete and celebrate that achievement regardless of the outcome. Ideas could include maybe a celebratory morning, afternoon tea, perhaps with families, a lunch or a dinner or a picnic. One thing I do want to mention today and highlight is that it is really, really important to note that meeting the National Quality Standard is a very high benchmark for quality of education and care. So a rating of meeting the National Quality Standard is a significant achievement and definitely one to celebrate. Proudly display your rating certificate, which is required. They'll arrive with your final report around 8 weeks after the visit. If you haven't requested a review, you may wish to request a logo from a CEQA to promote your overall rating to your families, and your current quality ratings will appear on the national registers approximately 2 weeks after your service, and you find that on the CEQA website. So I'm hoping that by now you've been informed, you know how to prepare for assessment and rating, and that you're seeing assessment and rating as less scary and maybe, and please share in the chat, more of an opportunity to shine. So hopefully we've turned the data on its head from the beginning of the session to the end of the session, and you can go away with that glint in your eye, and when you get that notice you'll be really excited because you are going to shout to the rooftops about your awesome practices and about practices awesome practices in family daycare. So thank you, everyone. Thanks for staying with us. For those of you who are still here, there's quite a lot of you still here. That's awesome. Please do shine. You already are amazing. In my eyes, you do shine. What you do with and for children and your families and each other every day is phenomenal. Thank you for your commitment to always looking to grow professionally and to provide those quality experiences for your children and families. Thank you very much. And I wish you a most beautiful evening and rest of the week. So thanks, everyone. And hope the rest of the week's awesome as you are. Thanks.